What's up, everybody? I am Dan Theory at Theory BFF, so you can find me on Twitter. I'm here last time by myself on the Beerfield Fantasy Football podcast. It's not really a podcast. We're more just live on YouTube because Hopper, who's on his honeymoon with live studio audience, is out. They'll be back on Sunday. So last time with me, last awkward start. As again, there's no music, there's no drops or anything like that. So I kind of just do everything by the cold open. Before we jump into everything, quick social media shout out at Beerfield FF on Twitter, Instagram, and on Tap. Beerfield Fantasy Football on Facebook and YouTube. If you're watching this, you know where to find us. If you like what you hear, like what you see, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and also hit that like button if you like what you hear, and also hit that bell button to be notified when we go live. We go live generally on Sunday mornings for the live stream episode, and then Mondays and Wednesdays during the season to kind of get you prepped up and for the upcoming weeks, and then also get you, kind of give you a mindset of what you've seen so far this season. It's Wednesday, so that's the fun that's the fun episode for us this week. Starting sits and streams and you call it and a little DFS, a little bit of betting. But before we get out of that, let's jump into what I'm drinking today. Again, no drop, so awkward drinking pause for pause purposes. I am drinking very, very local beer, Rolling Meadows out of Cantrell, Illinois. They're about 15 minutes north of Springfield. This is their blueberry pink peppercorn tripel. And per the can art, or I guess per the can, this big barn-sized beer is still gentle on the eyes. Sweet esters and fresh blueberries from our neighbors gives this traditional golden beer a farm fruit kick. It's a perfect porch sitter. So again, Rolling Meadows blueberry pink peppercorn tripel. More on my thoughts on this later. Jumping into the news, and for a drinking pause moment. Buccaneers OC Brian Leftwich said that O.J. Howard's time is coming. This is good, because why the fuck is he being wasted as a blocker and not running routes? He's too talented. I get it. He's a very good blocker, and the offensive line isn't great. But they still need playmakers. And while it was a 2 good week stretch from weeks 3 and 4 last week, they really struggled to get things going to the point where Mike Evans just had 3 targets and 0 catches. A.J. Green is starting to practice in limited fashion. This is coming along slowly for his injury. But Coach Zach Taylor has stated adamantly that they're not trading him. There have been reports that teams have offered first-round picks or would offer first-round picks if the Bengals are looking to move Green. I think they should do that in a heartbeat. 31-year-old receiver who's been battling injuries on and off throughout its career, and a team that's likely going to be in a rebuild for the next 2 to 3 years at least. I think it's time to get what you can for A.J. Green. Steelers OC Randy Fitchner said he was not sure who would start at QB against the Chargers Sunday night. This seems crazy to me that Mason Rudolph could actually play on Sunday night. I don't think he's clear concussion protocol yet. Those of you have probably seen the hit on him from Earl Thomas in last Sunday's game against the Ravens. Right now, I think it's Delvin Hodges is the backup, or would be the starter. He started last week when they played. But right now, it's unsure of. Rudolph is limited. Is put in limited sessions in practice so far, so he could play Sunday night. Still not a great matchup. Still not in love with Pittsburgh's offense. Raiders release wide receiver J.J. Nelson. This comes after the Raiders decided to bring back recently released Marcel Aitman, brought him back on the 53-man roster. This all happened because they traded, I believe, a 5th-round pick for Zay Jones. Oh, yeah, by the way, the Raiders traded for Zay Jones. As for the hangovers or injury updates for the week. Jets tight end Chris Herndon, who was slated to make his his return from his 4-game suspension is now considered week to week with a hamstring injury that he suffered while running routes, I believe, on Monday. I guess this just goes to show the conditioning that he was in. I guess he wasn't all there just quite yet. The hamstring injury is considered to be minor, so just keep up with the updates. I don't expect him to play this week. Deshaun Jackson is unlikely to play against the Vikings as he recovers from an adamant injury. Adam Thielen Thielen did not practice per an illness. Sammy Watkins is still not practicing for his hamstring injury. I don't expect Watkins to play. I fully expect Thielen to play. It's just an illness. As long as it doesn't get any worse, I fully expect him to play. While T.J. Hawkinson has a clear concussion protocol just yet, he did put in a full practice, suggesting that he should be ready to go on Sunday, if he gets cleared, of course. Marquise Brown he did not practice per his ankle injury. I believe this is back-to-back missed practices for him. Doesn't look great, but keep in mind, not a great matchup for him anyways. More on that later. Devontae Adams also did not practice and is unlikely. It's starting to look like he's not going to play. This is per ESPN's Packers reporter Rob Demovsky. He doesn't expect him to go Monday night against the Lions, which isn't good because Aaron Rodgers and Marquez Valdes-Scantling were both just limited in their practices today. I'm not shocked about Rodgers. It seems like there's always something to go with them. With MVS, though, his injury is hamstring and calf related. This is something to keep an eye on, though, as they tend to be lingering. But they do have an extra day of practice to get that right. Alex Burkhead is expected to miss tonight's game against the Giants. Not shocking there, like Sony Michel in this matchup, as I don't really expect the Patriots to truly just force tempo against the Giants. They will probably just want to get out of there and play, or they probably just want to get out with the win and with less injuries as possible, as if Philip Dorsett is likely not going to play tonight either with a hamstring injury. According to Ian Rappaport, Todd Gurley's Week 6 status is very much up in the air because of the quad injury he suffered in last Thursday night's game against the Seahawks. If he's a no-go, Malcolm Brown is a must-add, and he is a potential flex option. I don't love him against the Niners. Niners' defense has been fantastic, and we all know that Malcolm Brown isn't Todd Gurley, but this is something to keep an eye on for the Todd Gurley owner. He's gotten it going the last couple of weeks, scoring some touchdowns, starting to look like not the Todd Gurley of old, but a Todd Gurley that we can trust as an RB2 at least. And if he's not able to go, if he's banged up, I don't expect him to. I wouldn't be surprised, we'll say, if he's very limited in the snaps and touches he gets, and this ends up becoming more of a Malcolm Brown game, even if he doesn't play, or even if Gurley does play. David Johnson did not practice today per his back injury. There's been reports that he could not play this week. There's been nothing definitive about that. This is something to monitor. He injured the back. He said that he was playing with a back injury in Sunday's game. Again, it's something to monitor. Tune in on Sunday for that final update to see if he plays. Randall Cobb did not practice per a hip and back injury. Don't really care. He's gone by the wayside as the Cowboys' offense has began the struggle. Traquan Smith continues to not practice. This is a setback. He was able to play a little bit last week against the Bucs, and it does not look good. Does not look good for him to come back this week against Jacksonville. Vance McDonald did not practice per a shoulder injury. Again, not shocking. He seems to always end up being hurt. Again, if you have to rely on Vance McDonald, I'm sorry. Like I am in a few leagues, but also just keep an eye on it. And then Elvin Kamara, he popped up in the injury report. He put in a limited practice per an ankle injury. Again, something to monitor. If he puts in a full practice tomorrow, then I'm not concerned. If it's just limited, I'm still not that concerned. If he misses tomorrow is when things get very, very interesting. So keep an eye out on that. That's all we got. I wanted to run through them pretty quickly. What's up, Mr. Druros? Would you trade Juju for OBJ? What are your thoughts? It just redraft or dynasty. I'm assuming just redraft. To me, you're not really gaining much in terms of value. They're both struggling in an offense within their offenses that they're not performing in. The offenses themselves have been struggling. I expect the Browns to be to turn it around more so than the Steelers. The Steelers have kind of been handicapped by their injuries. For me, it's whatever you prefer moving forward. Beckham has difficult matchups moving forward. Against Seattle, then I think he gets New England. He gets 4 more difficult quarterback matchups for him. I wouldn't be looking to move Juju for him unless I'm getting something else in return. But other than that, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. All right, moving on to our start, sits, and streams. All right, so Hopper was kindly to text me all of his starts and sits streams and you call it. I will read off through his quickly. He picked Adam Thielen, Carlos Hyde, and A.J. Brown. For his starts, Thielen gets the Eagles. He basically put down because the Eagles secondary is susceptible to wide receiver production. We saw it, I think, nearly every week so far this season, besides the Jets, because the Jets kind of just suck, and they didn't have Sam Darnold. I like the Thielen call. May seem like a softball though. Carlos Hyde against the Chiefs basically put this down because of what Marlon Mack did. I don't disagree with this. They've struggled against the Chiefs. They've struggled against the in-between the tackles running backs that we've seen so far this year. Teams have been able to kind of keep pace at least through the first half with the Chiefs, or at least through the first quarter. Hyde has been actually decent so far this year, so I don't hate that call. And then I got a feeling start is A.J. Brown versus the Broncos. He fully expects Chris Harris to shadow Corey Davis. I'm not in love with this either or. I don't really trust the Titans offense still. I guess if you're looking for a Hail Mary, then you throw at A.J. Brown. I wouldn't be surprised if this game goes super under just by their point total, and both teams struggle to put up points. As for my starts, I have Adrian Peterson versus the Dolphins. So look, it's been tough for Peterson so far this year. He hasn't scored touchdowns since week 1 where he scored 2. He hasn't put up 50 yards or even caught a single pass since week 2. But if you're going to play him in any game this year, this is the game to do it. He gets the Dolphins, which we all know fucking sucked with the worst run defense so far this season. In terms of fantasy production allowed, they've given up 9 total touchdowns and over 100 yards per game to start the season. When the Redskins fired their head coach, Jay Gruden, and they promoted Bill Callahan, their offensive line coach, to the head coach job, he stated immediately that they wanted to establish the run more. There's been reports now within the last, I think, a couple hours that Peterson stated that he's been feeling great so far. This has been the best practice he's had all season, and they want to make him the focal point of the offense, which makes sense because you're on your second or third string quarterback. You want to win a game to kind of inspire something there. So I wouldn't be shocked if they lean on Peterson a lot more on Sunday. My next start, DJ Moore versus the Bucks. This game is in London. DJ Moore has actually had a good start to the season. He's had either over 75 receiving yards or a touchdown in 5 of his first 6 games to start the year. He's got a great matchup against the Bucks. The last time he played him in week 2, he put up a season-high 14 targets, caught 9 of them for 89 yards. The Bucks are also pretty fucking terrible against receivers. They've given up the second most receiving yards, the third most targets, and they're up there in the most receptions given up. They're also tied for 8th and 6 touchdowns given up. It's London. Things could get weird, as we've always seen every year. But if you're going strictly off of matchups, I think throwing DJ Moore out there in what could potentially turn into a shootout, as both teams do like to push tempo and run plays, especially passing plays. I do like him this week. My last one is Preston Williams for the Dolphins. He's, of course, playing against the Redskins. We just talked about AP. This is strictly for the deep league players out there, because you're not throwing them out there likely in 12-team leagues unless you're desperate and then have buys because of injuries and everything else. But But Miami's bad. There's no denying that. You can't just naturally trust a team to put up points when they're as bad as they are, especially when they're trying to tank. But Preston Williams is actually, posted some decent target numbers. 6 in week 3, 12, or 6 in week 2, 12 in week 3, then 7 in week 4. They had their bye week last week, so they didn't play. Well, sadly, the targets are there. He's had no touchdowns, but he's posted at least, on average, about 50 yards. So yes, his floor isn't great, but this is kind of a matchup where if you're looking for something, if you're desperate for something in a matchup that could be high scoring because both defenses are bad and both offenses are just going to throw whatever sticks to the wall up there, Preston Williams is not a bad play. Neither is Devontae Parker. They both have posted decent air yards. We've seen from Josh Rosen. He's not. He's not going to not throw it deep. So there's some chances for both of them to even produce numbers. Washington has also given up non-receiving touchdowns this season to receivers, nearly 1,000 yards on 72 catches in their first 5 games. So there is some upside to playing Preston Williams and even Devontae Parker this week. Moving on to the sits. For Hopper, he put down DJ Chark versus the Saints. I like this call. Chark has fully established himself as the number 1 receiver, which is great for Chark owners. He scored in every game besides one. In the one game he didn't score in, he had a touchdown called back to the penalty. But he gets Marshawn Lattimore, who just shut down Mike Evans. Marshawn Lattimore is a very good cover corner, and Chark has established himself and I think have positioned himself enough from everybody else in that roster for a team to shadow cover him. So I do like that call. He then posted Royce Freeman versus the Titans. I think this is pretty easy to note, too. Philip Lindsay has gotten it going a little bit. Royce has still been decent, but the Titans have a very good run defense. I don't expect a lot of scoring in this, so you're hoping for a touchdown. May or may not happen. I'm not excited. I have to play him in a couple leagues. And then he gets the true softball of the week. He said he's going to sit Daniel Jones versus the Patriots. I think this is pretty obvious. I wouldn't play him either way. New England hasn't given up a passing touchdown this season. They forced 11 interceptions, even though their matchups have been very, very soft. Jones is also without Saquon Barkley, Evan Ingram, and Sterling Shepard. The only target he gets is he gets Golden Tate, he gets a very vanilla Wayne Gallman, and then a rookie that's impressed, but it's still just a rookie, and Darius Slayton. So I agree with him completely here. I don't know why anybody would throw him out there. Maybe in Dynasty League that they're trying to tank in, I guess. And then for my sits, I have Jordan Howard versus the Vikings. Well, Jordan Howard has really enjoyed a nice 3-game stretch. He's posted 4 rushing touchdowns and 5 total in his last 3 games. The Vikings are a difficult team to run against. I know Aaron Jones did what he did, but he scored 2 touchdowns, or he scored 1. I think Jamal Williams scored 1 as well. But besides that first quarter, they've really given up nothing else. They've only given up 400 rushing yards in their first 5 games, and just that 1 lone rushing touchdown, which I believe went to Aaron Jones. Jamal Williams, I believe, was a passing touchdown. And then there's also the game script dependency here, too. If the Vikings, which have played very well at home this year, I bet against the Raiders, against the Falcons and Raiders, they can jump out the early leads. They can make teams struggle. If Philadelphia gets out, or if Philadelphia falls behind early, you can see them change to more of a up-tempo game script, which then tends to lead more to what Miles Sanders is. Miles Sanders is a more complete running back. He'll get all the pass catching work now that Darren Sproles is going to play. Well, Howard could fall into the end zone. I don't expect his production to be good. I don't expect him to get a lot of carries. I expect the Vikings to come out as balanced as they were last week against the Giants. So I don't like Jordan Howard this week. And then Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown is about as boom-bust of a player as we've seen. He's since posting a season-high 13 targets in Week 2, he's studied the lost targets over the last 3 games. He's just seen 5 targets against Pittsburgh last week, which, yes, was a difficult matchup for him. But now the Bengals have been quietly good against receivers, and that's because they're terribly bad against running backs. Against receivers this year so far, they've only given up 51 catches on 75 targets for 676 yards and only 4 touchdowns. Brown lives off of touchdowns. He lives off of his big plays. He hasn't practiced all week, so this just may be a wash regardless. But even if he was healthy, I wouldn't like this matchup for him. The Ravens are going to exploit their positive matchup against the run here and just beat them down with Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards. I don't expect the Bengals, who could fall behind early on, now force tempo here either and just try to get out with, with some dignity left. So I don't like Marquise Brown this week, especially if he doesn't score a touchdown. My last one is Jared Goff to kind of ride this QB hate train here. Well, Goff is a far better QB at home. He hasn't been that great at home this season. In just 2 games so far, so yes, this is a small sample size. His touchdown-interception ratio is just 1-to-1. Yes, his yards totals have looked fantastic over the last couple games, especially his last home game, because they've been blowing out games or shootout games against the Bucs and against the Seahawks. They had to fight to come back against the Buccaneers in a game which they should have handily won, honestly, and that's why he posted such great numbers. Now they get San Francisco, who isn't a team that's going to likely try to push tempo. I believe they lead the league in running and rushing attempts. So they're going to try to slow that down, keep this offense in line. And then with also the injury updates coming out, Brandon Cooks is still, he's expected to play, but he's been battling concussions. You have Todd Gurley, who may not even play. So the weapons are starting to come down for Goff. I don't like him this week. That and the 49ers have just been good against quarterbacks this year. They've given up the second fewest points to quarterbacks this season, which is under 10 points per game. They've also have given up more they've also have picked the ball off more at 7 than given up passing touchdowns at just 5. We know that Goff is a turnover machine when he struggles with pressure. He struggles with his decision making when he's pressured, which is something that the 49ers have done very well this year so far. Okay. Before we move on to our streaming sessions and then our you-call-its, I'm going to give out a quick beer review for Rolling Meadows' is Blueberry Pink Peppercorn Tripel. It's different. It's very light. It's very crisp up front. You get the blueberry. You get some of that pepperness from the peppercorn in this. It's a bit fluffy, which is going to be from the Tripel style of the beer. I didn't pour it into a glass. I don't have the color to show you guys. This isn't a traditional style that I drink, but it's something that I wanted to try. It was given to me by their rep. So I just had it sitting there in the fridge, and I didn't want to waste anything good without Hopper being here. So it's not my favorite style. I think if you like Tripels, I think this could be interesting. I don't get a lot of blueberry on this. I don't know where the pink is supposed to come from. Maybe that's just a sour peppercorn. As someone who's gotten better at dissecting beers, but isn't great here, this isn't something that I would probably pick up again. All right, weekly specials here. So for Hopper streams, you got some of the good ones here, I guess. He put down Kirk Cousins, which I agree with, against the Eagles. He's 26.6% owned. The Vikings found the balance of their offense last week. Yes, it was against the Giants, but it was really good to see them come out early and often still throw, especially when the lead was in hand early on. So I do like this call this week. I think the Vikings have I want to say that they have. You see a full, complete game from both passing and rushing and offense. I expect them to stick with it. And with the Eagles struggling, or with the Eagles a far better run defense, I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings decide to air it out a little bit more this week. His tight end is Noah Fant, owned at 10% versus the Titans. Tight end streaming options are really, really bad this week. A lot of bye weeks there's 4 teams on bye, and just with the pickings being very, very low, and with most teams kind of gobbling up any and every tight end that has at least one blow-up game, the the options to pick from have become difficult. Again, this is kind of like a I feel it game from Noah Fant, or this is kind of a Hopper's gut reaction, and I have a feeling that Fant won't go off. So he struggled with his streaming tight ends this year, but I do like Noah Fant, extremely athletic. It can at least give some more playmaking options for Joe Flacco in this Broncos offense. And then his defensive streaming option is the Steelers versus the Chargers. It's in LA. Mostly, I would stay away from this game. The Chargers offense continues to take beatings with injuries. They just put Marquise Pouncey on IR for the year, so they lose another offensive line piece. I don't know the status of Mike Williams or anybody else in that team, or I don't know the status of Mike Williams. And I believe Travis Benjamin is also still banged up, so the playmakers there are a little bit rough. And the Steelers have their secondary have been very good since they acquired Mika Fitzpatrick from Miami. So I don't hate this call, especially when you're looking for sacks and turnovers. Then then for my streams here, because of the pickings and everything else, I didn't have the best to pick from. For my quarterback, I picked Gardner Minshew. Again, not a sexy pick. We all love him here. Everybody has had Minshew mania. It's happened. It is what it is. But it's for also decent reasons too. Well, since taking over as a starter in week 2, he's scored no less than 17 points, and he's also posted 2 20-plus fantasy point games, which is ultimately what you want from a streaming quarterback, is you want to reach that 18 to 19-plus range. The Saints have been better against QBs recently. They've also struggled on the year. They've only picked the ball off twice while giving up 8 passing touchdowns, nearly 1,400 yards, which is just under 300 passing yards a game, and they've given up the 3rd most points to QBs this season. So if you're looking for a streaming option, especially at home, I don't hate Gardner Minshew this week. And for the gross tight end streaming option, I picked Ricky Seals-Jones. The tight end streaming option is a fucking wasteland. We all know this. We keep hammering it home. I hope you guys have figured out your tight end position at this point so far. But if you haven't, because of injuries or bye weeks, Ricky Seals-Jones is not a bad dart throw. The snaps have not been there, which isn't great, but you're hoping for touchdowns when you get down to this range, and you're hoping for one big play. And at least the Browns have a good matchup against the Seahawks in this regard. The Seahawks have given up the fourth most points to tight ends this season, the 3rd most yards, and the 9th most targets and receptions. This also goes along with just 2 touchdowns. So while they're not the Bucs and the Cardinals of the world against tight ends, they're at least one of the worst to go with it. So there is some opportunity there. You're hoping for a touchdown. You're hoping that he gets the lone big play to tight end pass here in this game. Plus, the Browns are a bit desperate. They need something to go their way. And then my defense streaming option here, I picked the Redskins because why wouldn't you play the defense against the Dolphins? Yes, the Redskins suck. Yes, their defense isn't very good. Yes, this game's going to be ugly, but ugly games are good for fantasy defenses. I expect sacks in this game. I expect turnovers in this game. And I wouldn't be shocked if both teams scored a defensive touchdown. Plus, they're playing against Josh Rosen, who's only thrown 1 touchdown this year and has thrown 3 interceptions. He's also taken at least 3 sacks over his last 3 games. So there's a decent floor for the Redskins here. There's some upside just given the ugliness that this game could turn into. And then we got our last section here, and then we'll get you guys out of here. This is our DFS and game locks of the week. This is we'll give you guys one guy here that we like from both DraftKings and from FanDuel. Hopper will take DraftKings. I will take FanDuel. Hopper plays DraftKings a bit more. He put down Jarvis Landry at a value of 5,200. I don't play DraftKings. That seems pretty fair. He's been getting all the targets really the last couple weeks as teams have focused to stop OBJ. Plus Landry tends to be the guy that they throw underneath to. He's kind of become Baker's safety blanket, as you can say. And then mine is Adrian Peterson at 5,300. I've stated why I like AJ Peterson this week. I like him in cash as a value play. Not a terrible GPP here option as well. Just a good all-around cheap option for running back this week, which is never a bad thing when you're forming rosters. And then our game locks of the week. Hopper's been, I think, on a hot streak. I think he's hit every one this week, or I think he's hit every week so far this season. So what he says to do, you probably want to take it. His is the under in the Dolphins-Redskins game. The over-under is at 41.5. I think that opened up too high. That may have gone down since. So please check what the game total is before you make a bet. This should be under 40. I don't expect both teams to score. Though Case Keenum did put in a full practice today, the offense has struggled still to put up points. Miami's been all over the place. They can keep up with teams early on, and then they just kind of lose it at the end. So I like this call. It's going to be a gross, ugly game, as I've been stating. So then mine is the Jets. Mine is 7.5 against the Cowboys. This game I don't love, but when I looked at it, you have a home team that's being given 7.5 points against a struggling offense here in the last couple weeks, and it also looked pretty mediocre against the Dolphins in Week 3. And this is the Cowboys. Yeah, I also have Sam Darnold's back. He's going to spark this offense and at least give them something, far more than what they had with Luke Falk. Well, I do think the Jets will lose. I don't think they'll lose by more than a touchdown. I don't think there's even a chance that you play the Jets money line. I think the Jets could upset the Cowboys this week. That's my hot take. The Jets upset the Cowboys. That's all we got here, guys. Thank you for tuning in. This is the last episode without Chris in this. He'll be back on Sunday. I unfortunately have to work, so I will not be there Sunday morning. But we will be back to what we normally do afterwards. So much of this, no drops, no music, no nothing else. I hopefully good luck to you guys this week with all your plays. Again, if you have any questions or anything else, just shoot us, shoot me a message on Twitter. Shoot the show a message on Twitter, and I'll get to you as best I possibly can. And we'll see you guys Sunday. Thank you.